Don't you wish summer could go on forever? Where every day is an endless beach day, with a new adventure on every tide. Limitless feasts for the senses, and long nights filled with magic and mystery. St. Augustine, Ponte Vedra, and the beaches. Explore Florida's historic coast.com.
Weight of 3 tons and over are required to be brought into a licensing compound to be inspected, only at CARICOM. Commercial vehicles, registered T, H, R, and others, are required to be brought into licensing office for inspection. With these amendments, moving forward, vehicle testing stations will now include public hire vehicles under Section 2 of the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Act, with a tare weight not exceeding 2,270 kilograms. These would include taxis, hired cars, and other passenger vehicles licensed to carry persons for hire. 2, authorizing the examiners of VEMCOT to inspect all taxis, regardless of tare weight, and all goods vehicles exceeding 3,200 kilograms. This would immediately relieve license division of close to 50,000 inspections a year. The second item I would like to discuss is the demerit points. Under the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Act 4850, there are currently 99 violations or offenses. 69 carry demerit points. 63 violations and 6 criminal offenses. Cabinet has approved the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment to the 9th Schedule, Order 2025. Once this order is signed by me, the 9th Schedule of the Motor Vehicle and Road Traffic Act will be amended by deleting the demerit points for all violations except for items 6, 23 to 27. The 6 criminal offenses, the demerit points will remain. Those 6 are driving while under the influence of drug, driving or being charge of a vehicle with your blood alcohol level exceeding the limit, failure to provide a specimen of breath or blood, failure to submit for breath analysis, and careless driving. I am signing the order shortly. Any questions? Yes, sir.
What happens to people on the right points who have been charged previously? Will they still operate under that law?
We are still discussing that, or rather not discuss that at this time, sir.
And in terms of the inspection for taxis,
yes.
How frequently will they have to register?
No.
Once a year?
Same as it is now, but they could go to one of the 79 inspection stations throughout the country.
So every 3 years then? Every 3 years?
No.
Or 2 years?
The commercial vehicles go every year. Commercial vehicles go every year, sir.
Right. So
But now they could go to one of the 79 inspection
every
stations.
year, so taxis have to go every year.
Yes.
So to any of the 79.
Yes. Commercial vehicles, yes.
And could you reiterate the demerit point systems, the number of demerit points in terms of being disqualified would remain the same? If you get
Yes, it will remain the same. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I will now pass you on to the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, my colleague, Mr. Sobers.
Thank you, Eli. Good afternoon, everyone. So, this evening I'm here to give the country an update essentially as to what took place over the last 3 days at the 49th CARICOM Heads of Government meeting in Montego Bay, Jamaica. The theme of the meeting was grounded in people, partnership, promoting and serving a sustainable future. And Trinidad and Tobago participated in the meeting. The contingent from Trinidad and Tobago was led by myself, the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, and I was ably assisted and accompanied by the Minister of Homeland Security, Minister Roger Alexander, the Permanent Secretary from the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, the Ambassador to CARICOM, His Excellency Mr. Ralph Maraj, and the Director of CARICOM also accompanied us, Ms. Aisha Wharton. During the course of the 2 days of meeting, the Trinidad and Tobago delegation met and held discussions with Her Excellency Dr. Carla Burnett, Secretary General of CARICOM, His Excellency Irfan Ali, President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, the Honorable Mia Motley, Senior Counsel, Prime Minister of Barbados, His Excellency John Antonio Briceño, Prime Minister of Belize, Dr. the Honorable Ralph Gonzalez, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. the Honorable Terence Drew, Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Honorable David Burt, Premier of Bermuda, and the Honorable Ms. Kamina Johnson-Smith, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade of Jamaica. Trinidad and Tobago also advanced its country's position on several items on the meeting's agenda, including the CSME, CARICOM Agri-Food Systems Agenda, and the report from the Prime Ministerial Subcommittee on External Trade Negotiations. Trinidad and Tobago also participated in the Caucus of Heads of Government as well too, wherein a number of issues would have been touched on and dealt with as it pertains to the situation in Haiti, regional transport, the regional telecommunications strategy, and regional security architecture as well. Trinidad and Tobago also held several extensive bilateral discussions with ambassadors accredited to CARICOM from Singapore. We also did a bilateral with Jamaica, which touched on issues with respect to trade, immigration, regional security, which Minister Alexander participated in with the Deputy Prime Minister of Jamaica and the Minister of National Security, Mr. Chang. And Minister Alexander also had discussions with CARICOM impacts in Jamaica as well too. And as it pertains to the bilateral, Trinidad also held bilaterals with Portugal, Austria, which touched on issues with respect to health and security. The conversations that took place during that period of time in Jamaica for the 49 heads of government, we were able to engage with several of these countries on some of the issues that we think are extremely pertinent and important at this point in time. Those discussions allowed us to really exchange a lot of information to the possibility of signing some MOUs with these countries that we think would be very helpful for Trinidad and Tobago as we move forward in this dynamic world of uncertainty. Some of the issues that were also raised at the plenary sessions touched on some issues with respect to the CARICOM Development Fund, other issues with respect to external trade negotiations, and some issues as it pertains to the Reparations Committee as well, to which Trinidad and Tobago plays a central and important role in. We believe, having reported back to Cabinet on certain matters, that the participation at the CARICOM Heads of Government 49 meeting was extremely pivotal to us. And I think coming out of that engagement, we should see a lot of inertia taking place with respect to our relationship with several countries within the region, as well as those countries that we would have met through the ambassadors outside of the region. As a matter of fact, one of those phone calls advanced as recently as this morning with respect to our health relationship with Austria. And I think at a later stage, the Minister of Health would be in a very promising position to give the country a bit more information on those developments. I will leave the issues with respect to regional security up to my counterpart, Minister Alexander. But if you all have any other questions or any questions at all that you would like to ask, I am open to treating with them.
Yes,
Good afternoon, gents of Garden Media. Forgive me if this question was answered. I came in a bit late. But as it pertains to free movement within the region, I know 4 countries said that they plan to do that beginning October the 1st. What is Trinidad and Tobago's position on that?
Right. So we have had extensive research into this issue at the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs. This issue with respect to free movement did not just land on our doorstep. This is actually an evolution of what is currently in place right now with respect to the CSME. So as it pertains to the Caribbean single market economy, if persons want to move through the Caribbean region currently, what they have to do is to procure a CSME skills certificate, which would be issued by the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs. This particular evolution of the CSME now will see persons moving throughout the Caribbean region without having to obtain that skills certificate. Prior to the meeting in Jamaica, this was an issue that was being dealt with at a prime ministerial level, and Trinidad and Tobago has had extensive discussions internally with varying cabinet ministries, so that everybody is on the pathway for readiness as it pertains to eventual implementation of this free movement. We have had papers coming in from the Ministry of National Security as it pertains to immigration. We've had papers coming in from the Ministry of Health as it pertains to the health sector, also the Ministry of Education. As we are a new administration, we are now reviewing all of those consultations that they would have had internally to ensure that we are absolutely ready when we give the nod to CARICOM that this rollout of this new incarnation or evolution of the CSME could take place. So Trinidad and Tobago is not at we are at an advanced stage with respect to this position with full and free movement of persons, but we just wanted to pause a bit on certain aspects of it until Cabinet has a proper understanding of what this would look like. One of the gaps that we found at the ministry that we think it may be important for the public to fully understand and appreciate what this would mean for Trinidad and Tobago post the implementation of something like this. So some persons are considering whether or not we should have public consultation on the issue because it was not done before. And as much as the Prime Minister would have indicated through us and to regional leaders when she had her own discussions with them, that we are fully engaged with CARICOM and the tenets and principles and aims and objectives of CARICOM, and we want to reassure our Caribbean partners about it. We also need to balance that with respect to our obligations to nationals here and how our own nationals would feel about something like this. And that is where we are at this point in time. That is actually the same position adopted by other jurisdictions within the Caribbean right now. For example, Jamaica, Guyana, and whatnot. They have not put a pause, but they are also reviewing it and will give a signal to CARICOM as to when they are ready to implement a total free and full movement of persons within CARICOM.
And is there a timeline that has been placed on this for the government?
No, there's not been a timeline imposed upon us. Obviously, we are sovereign when it comes to something like that.
The government imposed
Yeah, internally, we have not imposed a timeline. I have certain things that I need to present to the Cabinet, which I will do in short order, and subsequent to that, the Cabinet will take a decision on certain aspects of it. We will make a decision, well, internally we will decide how we move forward with respect to the matter.
And what were some of the hiccups that you all would have encountered from the Ministry of National Security, Ministry of Health, and Ministry of Education?
No, I wouldn't say that there were hiccups. What I would say is that from my review of the information coming back to us from those ministries, there were some concerns and we needed certain responses from them in furtherance of those concerns. So we sent back out some responses from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and we're waiting for that information to come back into us at this point in time.
Yeah, hello, good afternoon. The Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda publicly had made mention of a $60 million US commitment made by the previous Kamala Prasad administration with respect to settlement of policyholders' claim for Clico and British American policies. Subsequent to that, you would have had under the last administration, where the Minister of Finance, Colin Humbert, he would have opted for voluntary, what do you call it? With Clico, put it into solvency, right? Voluntary solvency of the CL group, which Clico would have belonged to. Have you had any discussion with, or has the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda had any discussion with you with respect to that $60 million US claim? And would the fact that the prior administration put this matter into liquidation, would that have impacted in any way on the settlement of this particular issue?
Right, so on the margins of the CARICOM meeting, I had discussions with some of the OECS nations on this issue, both from Antigua and Barbuda, and that's Prime Minister Brown and Prime Minister Gonzalez from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And yes, it is correct to say that between, I think, in and around 2014, there was a payment that was made to these countries with respect to the Clico situation. And subsequent to that, no payment at all was made by Trinidad and Tobago to these affected countries. As it pertains to the bailout situation and the fact that a liquidator has been appointed, there are some legal issues that are alive essentially. And I think what I had asked them to do on behalf of the Honourable Prime Minister would be to send us a written correspondence on the issue, that is OECS nations, and based upon receipt of that, we will move forward with respect to engaging the Honourable Attorney General and the Minister of Finance with respect to treating with that issue to see how we could deal with that.
Having regard to the fact that the liquidator would have been appointed initially merely for about 8 months, and it's now 8 years, and there are still a lot of fees that are pending. Some of this has reached the Privy Council and so on. Has Cabinet, you would be part of Cabinet, has Cabinet taken any decision, or is it a consideration of Cabinet to wean out the liquidator and perhaps go back into the shareholders' agreement, which would have been the preferred route adopted by the Kamala Prasad predecessor administration between 2010 and 2015? Right,
so the Bankruptcy and Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act essentially in Trinidad and Tobago governs how, it's one of the main pieces of legislation that governs how we deal with insolvency and the appointments of liquidators. We have the CPR that treats with that as well too. At this juncture, it would be extremely premature to make any pronouncement on that. I would leave it into the hands of the Honourable Attorney General and the Minister of Finance, and subsequent to having a discussion at that level, then we would be able to inform the public. Well, I would prefer to inform the concerned parties first, which would be the OECS states, other debtors in terms of the Clico situation, and also the shareholders here locally. They will be the ones getting the information first, and then we would disseminate it to the public.
Certainly. One final question on that issue. The Prime Minister would have, during the campaign trail, as well as upon assuming office at post-cabinet press conference here, I believe on the 15th of May, would have given a commitment to lay the Coleman report in Parliament. So far, it has not been laid in Parliament, and we are hearing rumors that it cannot be located at all at the office of the Prime Minister. Could you in any way enlighten the public as to what's taking place with the Coleman report?
Well, in practice as a lawyer, I never commented on rumors, and I don't intend to start doing that. No, I don't. Well, they said it was a rumor, so I wouldn't want to comment on that.
CARICOM was the issue of illegal migration discussed among countries, especially in terms of crime, illegal guns coming in? Has that been discussed at all?
An aspect of migration with respect to certain security issues was discussed, I won't be able to get into that because it was discussed at a caucus level. I don't know if at the bilateral with the Deputy Prime Minister of Jamaica and Minister of National Security, he shares the two portfolios in one, Mr. Chang, whether that was discussed with Mr. Alexander, so I would leave that up to him to answer. Well, so you're...
Just one question for you, and Mr. Zakur, my colleague has a question for you, so please don't rush off. Can you give us an update on the UK visa imposition?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question.
As well as the US.
The US?
Yeah, the student visas.
Right, well, I mean, the US situation is one that we've not received any formal correspondence from the charge here in Trinidad on. But I mean, as you would well be aware, that is a situation that is tethered to the big, beautiful bill that was passed. And essentially it touches and concerns all countries that have to procure visas to go to the US. So it's not something that deals with Trinidad and Tobago in an isolated situation. So I mean, if the US passes legislation to treat with that, and it comes to us, we will have to abide by that position. Right. As it pertains to the UK, that is a very, very interesting situation. So we have it on good authority, essentially, that there were certain discussions that took place with respect to the High Commission and a particular security agency located here in Trinidad. What was revealed based upon that discussion is that a high and inordinate and extraordinary number of persons would have been leaving Trinidad and Tobago to go to the UK to claim asylum. That information was given to Trinidad and Tobago sometime last year, at the end of last year. And from what we can glean, essentially, the ministry, or none of the ministries, or the previous administration, no one prior to us coming into office did anything about it. They were told well in advance of the March deadline that eventually came upon them that they needed to do certain things about that issue. One of the things that was requested was for the change in a particular piece of legislation that would have allowed for advanced passenger information to be delivered to the UK maybe about an hour before the plane's actual departure for the UK. That was never done. And based upon the lackadaisical or ineffective or nonchalant or non-existent approach to deal with that situation and not providing a solution, we fell into error in the month of March, and they imposed the UK visa on us. Having come into office, we've had several discussions with the UK High Commission on this issue, and we have been successful in getting a meeting with the Home Office next week, Friday, I believe it is, to be done virtually, where we will discuss this issue and try to chart a course of solutions to hopefully bring about some type of relief to citizens within this country. Because nearly every couple of days, I think all of us, we are inundated with calls with persons who are facing challenges in procuring the visa. The UK has indicated to us that it is not a bespoke situation or a tailor-made situation in Trinidad and Tobago. They have essentially a visa system that they just put you in, and you have to look at why you've been placed into that category or pool and figure out your steps to come out of the pool.
So if you don't pass this legislation, you will be taken out of that pool?
No, I can't say that. What I can say is that it will assist us in terms of moving to get out of the pool, right? And we are trying our best to listen to what they have to say and move with alacrity to adopt the things that they've asked us to do, which did not take place previously, and that is why we are in this position.
Was there really, increase in number of people asking asylum?
Yes, there was. Yeah. I think it went up.
What was the reason why numbers?
The reason for the numbers?
No, the reason why they seek asylum.
Well, persons sought asylum because they were claiming that they were the victims of targeted crime and gang-related activity and whatnot. The problem that the UK has with that position is that every time someone claims asylum, in order for the UK to properly ventilate the claim itself, it cost the British people around £65,000 per person. That is inclusive of cost to feed, house, and treat with the person during their stay in the UK. And it rose to, as I said before, extraordinary levels. I think the last figure was around 400 and something persons, which was up from about 15 or 20 people per year. So based upon that trajectory that they found to be, difficult to...
Are you saying that 400,000?
No. I said 400 people.
400.
Yeah. 400,000 as... Yeah. Yes, yeah. Yeah, so it was not at that levels. It didn't start off there. It rose to that level, which caused alarm in the UK.
And it was a reason was crime, basically. That was the dimension.
Yes, so what they indicated is that it was a combination of two things. The larger portion was persons seeking asylum to escape being the victims of crime. And then there was a subcategory of persons who they deemed to be economic migrants. There are solutions, as I was explaining to Ms. Jensen before, how we could treat with the persons who would be seeking asylum to escape being a victim of crime. But in terms of economic migrants, it's a little bit more difficult to deal with. But we've already come up with what we think to be a palatable solution that we'll present it to them next week.
Have they been rejected?
Beg your pardon? No. And that is why they have a difficulty, because a lot of persons are claiming the asylum, and after they would have gone through the procedure, a large number of them would have been rejected. No, not with me right now.
Right, good day, Minister Zakur, before you run off.
Okay, good.
No, we have questions for you still, though.
Beg your pardon?
Don't go too far, I still have
No,
some
my dear, I
questions
will
for
be
you.
right there.
Yes, so I wanted to ask Minister Zakur if you spoke about PH cars. What was... So, under the last administration, we were coming to some terms with people who, because we have H cars and we have people who apply for hire with their private cars. Is there going to be legislation to deal with those people?
Currently, PH vehicles are private vehicles. But currently, regarding how we're going to treat with the PH vehicles, we are still discussing it.
Okay.
That would include rideshare drivers and whatnot as well? Or strictly those who only stands
But
illegally?
it's based on, for hire, based on your license plate. That is something we're also looking at, sir.
Right. Yet, I think either minister could take it, but the question I wanted to ask with respect to was the cost of intra-regional travel discussed? And also, are we looking at digitizing those forms that we have to fill when we come into the country? Because I'm assuming that would assist with this problem of immigration.
Yeah, well, I know interregional travel was discussed at the meeting. It was discussed at a caucus level, so until the curriculum, the notice that comes out from CARICOM is issued, I wouldn't want to pronounce on that at all. But it was discussed at the meeting. As it pertains to the form that you're referring to, that would lay within the hands of the Minister of Homeland Security. But that form was not discussed at the caucus meeting. I don't know if in conversation with Mr. Alexander it was discussed.
I wouldn't be long, so you could ask a question 100 times. Good afternoon again. I accompanied my colleague, Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, to Jamaica. And I met with the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Security, Mr. Chan. We had an extensive, interactive meeting, understanding that the both countries had the same issues. Our discussions included gangs, the murders, women abuse, among other things. There are some things I would not divulge because it concerns national security of both nations. But as we went along, we came up with some solutions to crime. And what we had have done, we looked at the crime structure. Because if you look at Jamaica for the longest, a couple of years back, you will see where the murder rate was. And you look at Jamaica now, and you'll see where the murder rate is. I was guided as to some projects I should choose and how to make it meaningful, how to get a sustainable impact on how we go forward. Some of the things that we also discussed was economic security, effective policing, swift justice, and crime prevention through social development and rehabilitation programs. Let me assure members of the public that we intend to take a dynamic approach. We intend to look at crime from all angles. One of the things I would have learned while I was there is how important technology, that role technology plays in this fight against crime. Because Jamaica, they had some of the best technology. Yeah, well, I hope that when we get the technology, it will lead us on top, according to the song you just played. So, yeah, having technology, you will realize the impact it can have, that sustainable impact on your community, on your country as it relates to crime. Realize that the gangs and the warfare involved in gangs, and the intent to, their purpose on many occasions is to disrupt or continue that fear of crime in and around communities. We also understand that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, for years, we have seen persons enter this country legally, enter this country legal, increase in population. However, the sanction strength of the police service have never increased. In order to get the impact that you're looking for, police must be visible, they must be able to challenge persons, and we're also looking to reignite that collaborative effort between members of the Defense Force and the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. Also, let me take this opportunity to thank all persons involved in national security with the display of professionalism at the time when the Indian Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, visited Trinidad and Tobago. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, the Defense Force, Fire Service, Transit Police, litter wardens, traffic wardens, members of the municipal police, all of them played a part with respect to the security and safety of Mr. Modi. I want to commend all of them for a display of professionalism on those particular days. If you have any questions, feel free. Okay, sure.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And good afternoon to members of the press, cabinet colleagues at the press conference. This afternoon, I would just like to raise two matters of interest, two matters relating to the discussions and deliberations today at the meeting of the cabinet held earlier this day. And to indicate first that pursuant to the direction of the Honorable Prime Minister, Mrs. Kamala Persad-Bissessar, the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries submitted for the consideration of Cabinet today a note to establish a committee to develop a strategy for the reactivation of the Guaracara refinery. Cabinet considered this in the context of the new structure that came into being by 2018 or thereabout, concerning the establishment of Trinidad Petroleum Holding Company Limited, Paria Fuel Trading Company Limited, Guaracara Refining Company Limited, and the Petroleum Company of Trinidad and Tobago. Members of the press, it is no secret that we had made a commitment in the national campaign for the April 28 general elections that it was the intention of this second administration of Mrs. Persad-Bissessar to reopen and reactivate the Guaracara refinery, which was slammed shut by the former administration and led to several social and economic dislocations, and of course the forex crisis that we have experienced and which we inherited over the past few months, with some linkage, of course, to the failure of an active refinery to generate forex to the economy. We have also taken note of the dismissal of thousands of workers, direct employees at the refinery, and of course the closure of business associated with doing business at the refinery over the years. We have taken note as well that the Guaracara refinery, which has been mothballed, still continues to draw down on precious taxpayers' dollars to the tune of $470,000 per month, which is paid to a contractor for monthly services associated with the refinery. We are also informed that the total cost incurred by Guaracara is estimated to be $5.6 million per month when one looks at other costs associated with the mothballing of the refinery. To remind you that the Guaracara refinery has a capacity to process 170 barrels of oil per day at its optimum operations. The then refinery owner, Petrotrin, in 2018 and before, processed in the region of 140 barrels per day, with imports accounting for 100,000 barrels of oil, and Petrotrin at that time providing the remaining 40,000 barrels per day. Since the closure of the refinery, the holding company has undertaken 3 processes to identify a preferred investor to restart Guaracara. That has been in the public domain, and Scotia Capital USA was engaged as a financial bidding advisor to assist and manage the process. That process, we were informed at that time, 2019, 2020, 2021, and etc., had led to the interest on the part of several entities. Notwithstanding those previous efforts, the new government is committed to establishing its own agenda to revitalize the domestic oil and gas sector, which continues to experience a sustained decline in both oil and gas production. Our approach is multi-sectoral, with strategies to improve upstream oil and gas activity, while simultaneously taking steps to reactivate the refinery and rejuvenate the downstream sector. Our strategies are integrated, but the ramping up of production of oil and gas is critical to any economic boom that we project. So with that in mind, we have taken immediate steps towards the goal of reactivation of the refinery, which has been out of commission for almost 7 years. A committee has now been approved by the Cabinet. The committee would be led by former Minister of Energy and Petroleum Engineer, Mr. Kevin Ramnarine. The committee includes former Vice President of Finance at Petrotrin, Mrs. Shariba Ali Rajak, former Vice President, Retail and Marketing of Petrotrin, Mr. Kelvin Harnanan, former Refinery Manager, Mr. Gautam Maharaj, University Lecturer in the area of Engineering and Maintenance, Mr. Kishore Jagru, Mr. Leslie Chang, Operations and Process Engineer, Mr. Christopher Jackman, OWTU Branch President, Mr. Danny Gulcharan, Electrical Systems, former OWTU Monthly Representative, Mrs. Margaret De Silva Ocando, Planning and Economics, Scheduling, Commercial Port, Marine Manager, Ms. Yashi Carrington, Senior Chemical Engineer at the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries, Mrs. Anushka Beni Suku, Chemical Engineer, too, at the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries, Mr. Len Chan Chow, Port, Marine and Shipping Expert. The terms of reference of the committee, ladies and gentlemen, is to examine the technical evaluation for the return of refining, its human resource required, financial, regulatory, and feedstock requirements, and commercial arrangements. In the conduct of its exercise, it is proposed that the holding company and or its subsidiaries would provide support as a secretariat for the committee and make available all documents, technical reports, financials, and personnel information that the committee may deem necessary for the execution of its task. We are hoping that this committee will take a maximum of 4 months, maybe less, to return with a report to the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, which will be transmitted to the Cabinet and will speak to the issue of the reopening of the refinery, its current state and assessment of its technical capacity, and, of course, a projection as to what would be required in terms of feedstock supply, human resource requirements, its technical assessment, readiness, and the infrastructure and utility profile as exists. This committee, we believe, will be meeting very soon. We will provide, of course, support from the holding company by way of honorarium and so on. And we are extremely pleased to announce that this has also, this initiative has also received the support of the Oilfield Workers Trade Union that has been involved with us in pathing the course that we will now take to reopen the Guaracara refinery. The second matter I wish to raise is a matter that I raised briefly on Monday night, last at our very successful Monday night report in Pinal, in the constituency of Siparia. I indicated then that our cabinet was considering, and I'm happy to note that we did consider and approve today a note from the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries that deals with the amendment to a production sharing contract for a particular block. And this block has been a block awarded over the years to Woodside Energy, and it is the intention here that Woodside Energy, in collaboration with BP, would have entered into discussions on a contract for the development of this field. What we found on coming into office is that the former Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, Mr. Stuart Young, brought a note to Cabinet in January 2025, which is a few months ago, of course, and 2 or 3 months before the holding of the general elections. The former minister brought a note to Cabinet in which he asked Cabinet to agree to the production sharing contract, in this contract in particular. Cabinet therefore agreed in January 2025 to a production sharing contract involving, of course, the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries on behalf of the Government of Trinidad and Tobago, Woodside Energy, and BP Exploration Operating Company Limited. It was only discovered in April 2025 that the note taken to Cabinet and approved contained a detrimental matrix involving costing and returns to the government and the people of Trinidad and Tobago by way of profit share. And the table that was approved recommended by Mr. Stuart Young and approved by the then cabinet of Prime Minister Keith Rowley at the time, a cabinet that included opposition leader Penelope Beckles, a cabinet that included Mr. Faris Alwari, cabinet that included Mr. Foster Cummings and many others on the opposition benches today. That cabinet approved and confirmed a note that reduced the government share of the profits of this particular profit-sharing contract by between 20 to 30%. What it meant is that this country stood to lose if we did not act today. The country stood to lose in terms of revenue 6.7 billion Trinidad and Tobago dollars because of the note taken by Mr. Stuart Young. The country would lose in revenue 6.78 billion Trinidad and Tobago dollars over the life of the proposed deepwater development. Ladies and gentlemen, it is amazing to note that this mistake was actually picked up by the contractor, Woodside Energy, and brought to the attention of our government. We moved with haste to discuss with the players and the stakeholders, and today we approved a new natural gas price class structure and matrix that gave the government of Trinidad and Tobago at the lowest end 10% increase and at the highest end 20% increase in our revenue from that particular project. It amounts roughly, by the calculations of those at the ministry, to be $1 billion United States dollars over the life of the project. And this to us is extremely significant because had this remained, I have asked incidentally for a complete investigation by the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries as to how an error, a mistake, a miscalculation could take place with a pricing matrix that allows a government to lose $1 billion United States dollars, almost 7 billion Trinidad and Tobago dollars in the life of a project. How can a mistake like that take place? I mean, I've known that we have sometimes, it's inevitable and human that we have errors, small errors in minutes and documents and notes and so on. But this is not a small error. This is an error of 7 billion Trinidad and Tobago dollars that was picked up outside of the ministry. And therefore, we had to correct this post-haste. And today we did, and in doing so, we have earned effectively by passing one note at the cabinet. I can tell you, by passing one note at the cabinet, we have just earned 7 billion Trinidad and Tobago dollars. So anybody who asks where the money coming from is correcting the mistakes of Stuart Young and others. That is where the money is coming from, without producing one extra barrel of oil per day. And since we came into office, I have said before, and I want to remind you, we have increased oil production from 48,000 barrels of oil per day, which we met today, by almost 5,000 barrels more. We have increased that to about 54,000 barrels of oil per day. We have increased gas production as well. In fact, today, a few moments ago, the Honorable Prime Minister, myself, the Honorable Ernesto Queza, met with the leadership of BP today, Mr. David Campbell and others. And we received the good news from Mr. Campbell and BP that they have also seen a growth in their own production in the second quarter of 2025. We're extremely happy to report that Shell, when you add that to Shell, that Shell has also indicated that they intend to ramp up and expand production and enhance production in the Manatee field by 10%. That speaks well for our revenue position, it speaks well for our foreign exchange challenge, and it speaks well for the investor confidence in Trinidad and Tobago at this time from the energy sector. So those are the two matters I would raise with you, and of course be in a position to take any question that you may have for myself or
Good afternoon, Minister.
Yeah, sure.
The refinery, right? The committee would report in 4 months, right? But
Sure.
But they won't choose anybody yet. They will say the way forward. In other words, to choosing the contractor who would take over the refinery.
No, this would proceed. This would be a process that would inform further decisions on the choice of players, stakeholders, partners in any venture to reopen the refinery.
So the old system was scrapped, has been scrapped.
We have placed that on hold, and pending the production of this report, which would be the most accurate report. I can tell you the last time any report was done on the refinery, we believe it was 2020. That is 5 years ago. In 5 years, in an industrial installation and so on, all types of things can go wrong. So this will inform our work further, involving those entities that have already expressed interest, and maybe other entities that may express interest in the future.
Do you have people who have expressed interest? Can you name some of them?
No, well, apart from those that are already in the public space, we have received information from other entities and so on. I'm not at liberty to speak to those entities now, but we had put on hold all pending an assessment of the refinery. Because what has happened is that entities can be making bids, can be making projections, and it may be out of sync with the reality of what they will meet at the refinery. And if we go that road, we could end up with another NICON.
And the OWTU would be one of those bidders.
They have always expressed an interest in this matter. And indeed, on this committee, we do have not one, but I believe three individuals, 3 experts nominated and supported by the OWTU on the Refinery Restart Committee.
Do you think that gives them an unfair advantage, having those people on the committee?
We are not thinking of it in that sense now. We just want to get an assessment, an honest, independent sort of technical assessment. And the persons associated over the years with the refinery, they are also not just persons associated with the OWTU, but employees, managers as well at the refinery. They will participate with a wider group of persons on conducting the assessment.
And is the government willing to put any money into that project?
Well, apart from the basic cost associated with the assessment now, which is a very minor cost in the scheme of things, we will then assess based upon the report. So the report will tell us to what extent the government will look at a capital outlay, to what extent we can look at equity participation as a structure for entering into any arrangement. That will tell us, the report will tell us the direction we can look in. And then we will get further assistance with commercial and contractual matters.
What is this basic cost?
Of?
You said there's a cost to the committee.
Stipend, board members' fee stipend. I don't have an exact figure, but I expect that the holding company will put in place some basic stipend fee. That cannot be much in the scheme of things.
And will the report be made public when it's completed?
We expect that the report would be in the public domain as well, after consideration, because it's not a secret assessment. The other matter, of course, was the other depot.
Yes, on the other matter, was there any explanation given to, and you said it was a mistake, or it might have been a mistake. Other than that, was any explanation given to why this $6.7 billion reduction in revenue was proposed and approved?
The preliminary explanation was that it was a mistake. I've asked for further examination of this matter in terms of the decision-making process, the layers involved. I've also asked that I be informed as to the direct participation of the former Minister of Energy and Energy Industries in this matter.
Now, going on to another issue here, the NGC chairman, who is the new NGC chairman, if you all have identified?
We have dealt with that matter, and in the coming days, we are just awaiting the normal arrangements to be put in place, and a full board of the NGC chairman and all board members will be announced, I believe, very early next week.
Plan to identify at least
I prefer not to call out names and so on before the persons themselves may have been contacted.
And the former chairman, Mr. Ramdar Singh, why was his appointment revoked?
Again, on the early part of next week, we'll announce the entire board. Yes, please.
Yes, good afternoon. With respect to this alleged mistake, Do you think there could be any demand for kickback in this particular arrangement? Has there been any sort of intimation to you in that regard?
It's an extremely weird, it's an extremely disturbing development. In fact, when this, even in a room with diplomats, when they hear of this, their eyes roll. Is a very, very suspicious, is a very disturbing development. I cannot yet speak to white-collar crime, corruption, an invisible hand involved in this, but what I could say is this is the first time I've been in public life now for almost 25 years. It's the first time I've heard of a mistake involving 7 billion Trinidad and Tobago dollars. Over the years, you'll recall when there was a matter involving, I believe, the Ministry of Housing. The former Prime Minister was Minister of Housing, and there was an issue over, I believe, unless I'm mistaken, $10 million. And Mr. Manning rose in Parliament to say where the $10 million went. That pales in as insignificant when you consider the mind-boggling figure of 7 billion Trinidad and Tobago dollars. I will not yet ask where was the $7 billion intended to go.
Is there a possibility that there could be a policy shift or policy decision whereby the state can retake, depending on the outcome of this report from the Refinery Restart Committee, where the state or perhaps via TPHL could take back control of the refinery rather than to go out for bidding, notwithstanding the fact that you said the government may also look at equity participation?
The options will be known after the report is submitted, but a key part of the report, I could tell you from the terms of reference, would be marketing and commercial arrangements, and we will look at the economics of that to inform the structure of any arrangements going forward that may involve yet again the state or may not involve the state at this time. Could I also indicate there's another matter in the public domain, and I've received several questions from members of the press, and I can confirm that the Chief Executive Officer of Heritage, earlier today, I believe, Heritage Petroleum Company Limited, its Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Eric Kescula, had submitted his resignation. I want to take the opportunity to thank him for his service to the company, to our country, and the time he has been there. I think he was appointed in June 2023, and he has resigned. Pursuant to his contractual arrangements, he will continue to work and to assist us as we go forward. He has indicated to us that he had sought and obtained other, roles and professional opportunities elsewhere. So we just want to take the opportunity to wish him well and to indicate that that is the state of play at Heritage.
Recently, I saw the principals from Proman. They had a meeting with you. There are two issues with Proman. One is that, well, they would have purchased the methanol plants where part of the money would be, that's the Clico methanol plant. Part of the proceeds are held in escrow, as well as the purchase from Mr. Dupree prior to the bailout agreement, where Clico Energy was sold to them, and that money is also being held in some account. It's billions of dollars of US money. Would the government be moving with any alacrity to access these monies, which could help alleviate the serious US financial crunch? And also, it can help in terms of the final payments of the debt owed to government by CLF.
Well, I can tell you that, yes, it is a fact we have met with the management and leadership of Proman. Not once. I think we have met on several occasions. They have, like most of the downstreamers, they have concerns with gas supply. They have concerns with recent trade arrangements involving the United States and so on. And they have not, we have not been having any detailed discussions on those matters, but you'll appreciate that detailed discussions on those matters would be sensitive, and we would not be eager to reveal in public some of the details, given the outstanding court matters involved and the outstanding investigations, reports, and so on involving that entire process and the history of that process that goes back, I believe, to 2010 or thereabouts. So these are matters that, if and when arise, we would meet and treat with it. But as of now, there are more matters of tariff, issues of tariff, market, and gas supply. Yeah. If not, thank you all very much. Oh, yeah. What? Cabinet ended. No, he said if she's in cabinet, no. Oh, yeah. The Prime Minister attended and chaired the cabinet meeting and has been involved in a series of meetings all evening, and I suspect that will continue way into the evening.
May I ask Mr. Sobers a question, Minister Sobers?
Yes, please. Thank you all very much.
Oh, I did have a question. Well, first of all, I want to congratulate you on the increased oil production, but I just want to find out, how did the ministry achieve that in this short time?
We have been working with the upstreamers, and we've been working with some of the lease operators and so on. And there are small issues involved with enhancing production and so on. And we have been able in a very short time to act quickly to deal with some of the more practical problems faced by lease operators. And of course, the enhancement in some of the areas had to do with some quick discussions with the major players as to our continuing participation, the continuing participation of those players. But the report so far has been extremely good, and I can tell you that we are extremely confident because, as I said on Monday night again, our revenue position moved from $955 million second quarter 2024 to $1.2 billion second quarter 2025. So it was also an increase in revenue to the country, and that excludes royalties, other payments to the Board of Inland Revenue, and so on. So thank you all.
One quick question. As you talk about a successful political meeting on Monday, the Prime Minister having opted not to attend the CARICOM government meeting, and one of the senior members in the party, deputy political leader, while I don't think you might challenge the Prime Minister to the political leader, but
You don't go where eagles dare.
yes, but would you be hopeful in any form or fashion that if need be for the Prime Minister to leave the jurisdiction, that perhaps he might be as one of the senior persons?
Could I tell you so that, and you remind me, I said it yesterday and I repeat to all the press now, I fully endorse the political leader, the Honorable Kamala Persad-Bissessar, to return as the next political leader of the United National Congress. There's absolutely no vacancy. I think somebody would have to be mentally deranged to consider contesting that position, but there are people like that, I know. So we want to express our endorsement, and on behalf of the constituency of Oropouche East, I've been in contact with our executive committee that will issue a statement shortly. The executive committee of the Oropouche East constituency has also extended congratulations to the political leader and fully endorsed her as the next political leader of the United National Congress. I know your question and I gave an answer. So that we will discuss whether or not you can act as Prime Minister. Thank you all very much. Thank you. I think we have come to the end. Mr. Sobers, Minister Sobers. Oh, Minister Alexander. Mr. Alexander. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Coming out from the meeting in Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago's position with the RSS. What's the latest with that? Are we planning to join the RSS? Will we be joining the RSS? How soon will we be joining the Regional Security?
Well, what I can tell you is this: we're working on a number of partnership movements that we can make with each other, a number of initiatives together. So at the end of the day, we will come to some common ground and treat to see how we could go forward.
Any deadline to that?
We hate to put deadlines on things, because things change in a day. So if you could fix it today, we fix it today.
So as soon as possible.
So as soon as possible.
Now, in Jamaica, you told my colleague that the Prime Minister didn't attend. If it was not you, it was Mr. Sobers, owing to pressing national security issues in Trinidad and Tobago. Could you give us a little update on those national security issues, and have they been resolved?
Well, there are still national security issues, right? And we wouldn't want to go into too much details where that is concerned. It's very important that some things we keep in order to get the level of success that we're looking for.
And in your speech before, you mentioned some programs that you were advised to introduce to address crime. Could you give us an update on those programs?
Yeah,
and what are they? Are they new or are they existing programs?
No. Sometimes some of them considered, they seem new to some people, but they were just given a different name. So some of the initiatives that we could enforce here, they just had a different name. Some we have tried before, and because of the lack of vision of the last administration, they were stepped aside. So now we must reintroduce it. But when we introduce it, we introduce it at a cost, because what could have been done 4 years ago, it is more costly now to do, and that is what's happening.
And could you identify these programs by name?
Well, let me just share one with you, a very simple one. We had technology placed in vehicles. Let's go with this one. Just technology placed in vehicles where we could get information here and now. How much of that you would have seen in a police vehicle within the last couple of years? You see, so we need to understand at this level that technology is the way to go. And while my colleagues, and I want to say this openly, while my colleagues were speaking about climate change, we were speaking about crime change in the region, how we could change crime in the region.
And my final question, can you give us an update on CCC and even the other programs like Mylat and Day? I know for sure CCC has been put on pause for some time. There are those who would have signed up for it and were looking forward to getting the stipend to help whatever bills that they have to pay. Now that it's on pause, what, if anything, is being done with regards to assisting them, and as well, how soon would we see CCC back out in full?
Well, whilst that would not fall under my purview, what I'm sure about is the government effort to have young persons prepare themselves for the future, learning something, sustainable something, where you could learn something, and at the end of the day, even if the government doesn't employ you, you can afford to employ yourself. You know, so give you an opportunity away from a life of crime. So having said that, we are looking at a number of initiatives, but I will leave that for the line minister to discuss with you.
Home invasion seems to be continuing, and no one seems to be arrested or held. Is that a priority for you now?
It must be. The safety and security of every citizen is a priority. And what we are looking at really is that we in the not too distant future, very soon, I don't want to give my friend a timeline, but very soon, might be even be in the next Parliament Day, you will see a number of laws coming forward to treat with home invasion, because we intend to give the citizens an opportunity to defend their castle. Underline the word castle. Yeah?
The Prime Minister has announced that police officers would be on high-risk schools. You spoke about, in terms of resources, they don't have enough resources. What about, also getting the army involved, soldiers involved in that, And of course, I think they must be unarmed, if they're in school. Would everybody be unarmed in school? How would that work?
There will be officers in the school, but to tell you if they'll be armed or unarmed, I cannot speak to that. What I can tell you, every situation will be dealt with according to its merit. So that's what we intend to do. Because I can't see you being by the school, and if you confront the officers with your AR-15, I don't expect them to take out their fingers and do this, right? I'm not saying that they'll be armed, but every situation will be dealt with on its own merit.
Would they be trained, the officers to go into schools? Would they be trained, give specific training to go into schools and be a part of the high-risk?
Yeah, we tried. Well, speaking to the new Commissioner of Police, he's trying to place persons in the environment to which they have that relative skill. And if they have the related skill, then they will be placed there. So we don't want to just put persons, as persons would say, square peg in the wrong hole. So you prepare the agency for the new initiative so they can confront it with courage and grace and professionalism.
Speaking of resources, at the meeting on Monday, the Prime Minister would have made several announcements about increasing the legal age for drinking and marijuana use.
Yeah.
In terms of enforcement, you know, are we going to, because this is a country where people drink a lot,
Yeah.
how are we going to enforce these new laws when they are brought into practice?
Well, that will be a responsibility for those who are supposed to enforce the law, which is the police. But there are one additional thing she told me today, is that it would not just be enforcing the law, but the time has come for all citizens of China to be able to understand that they have a responsibility. And one of the responsibilities they must have should be to walk in the public domain with some form of ID. How do you want me to, if you tell me you're 16 years, I look like 16 years, I could size 40 something and I 17. So some persons must walk with some form of ID in order for the police to ascertain your age and your address. So it's something that we're looking at.
And also there is we were checking over the last couple of days, there is no provision in the law against the use of alcohol by minors. You're not supposed to sell it to them, but there's nothing in the law that says that minors cannot or should not drink alcohol. Will this also be addressed in new legislation?
Yeah, that's the AG is having a discussion as we speak with respect to that issue. Anything that we intend to implement would be searched by the AG and his team and corrected, even if it was an error before.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Alexander. In fight against crime, well, there will be the soft approach and there will be the more the policing approach. One, there are a few areas that perhaps need to be paid attention, and I'm asking the question in terms of the reinvigoration of the NOC, which was dismantled by the previous administration, the National Operations Center. 1, 2, in terms of the use of drone technology, because if you don't have proper aerial surveillance, other than some of the cameras which are working, some are not working, but there seem to be no other aerial surveillance really to support ground troops and forces in terms of the fight against crime, especially in active situation, not only crime, but perhaps in disasters and so on. In terms of utilizing technology, DNA, forensic, and these type of things, where there seem to be, we are at a really low level in that regard. And further, yourself as a police officer who would have undergone training at the police academy, from then to now things might have changed, but yet the training seems to be at a particular level. Where do you think that the police officer come out of the academy are properly trained to deal with modern crime situations and so on in terms of different scenarios when confronted, in terms of use of the various technologies, and in terms of sometimes perhaps additional specialized training?
Well, that's a difficult question from the time I left the police training college and the amount of training I would have acquired during my tour. However, the training academy has a well-rounded staff who also, they are trained in different type of technology, especially involving policing. So I know they will pass on, because on many times we see them coming up for courses and things, and we send them. So they'll come back and pass on their knowledge to the officers at the police training academy. Now, right, the detection rate involves a number of variables. And one of the variables is you as a citizen. Because you as a citizen, you see something happen and you refuse to report to law enforcement, and then you make statements like, afraid and afraid and afraid. But the more you're afraid, the more it continues to the next person, and the next person, and the next person, and you're still afraid.
That's why intelligence gathering and perhaps not operating in silos, but
right.
information sharing.
Right. So then that is why we are looking to train the officers in areas where technology have brought evidence to the court successfully.
It's been about just over 2 months since the UNC government came into office. We've had about 80 or just over 80 murders. The country woke up this morning to the news of a young man being murdered. He went to purchase a vehicle. And I think in another report, a fisherman being gunned down. You spoke about legislative relief to come, but what about crime fighting on the ground? What is being done to deal with the murders in particular in the country?
Well, what I can tell you is this. That probably is a question you would have to ask the Commissioner of Police, in the real sense of the word. However, what I can tell you is that my responsibility as the line manager is to provide him with as much resources, technical resources, manpower resources, vehicles, etc., to put on the ground, because I have said this before and I'll say it again. If the police control the streets, the police can control crime. And I leave that right there. Thank you very much.
You mentioned programs and all of that. Would we see a return of live sport or any other program of that ilk?
Live sport.
Yeah. Or any other program of that?
Of course, we have a list of
region?
programs to come, but live sport, why you choose that one though?
Well, it was introduced under the
This is a new government, so we treat things differently. We're looking at communities, we're looking at the youth, we're looking at how we could skill them for employment in the future.
What about the NOC? Address the NOC.
Pardon me?
The NOC, National Operations Center.
Yeah, of course. I should have answered that question before, I'm sorry. The National Operations Center, to me, is underutilized. And if it is underutilized and I'm the line manager for it, if you want to call me that, or the line minister for it, then we have to get it up and running again. And that's how I see technology fitting into all of this. A man who doesn't see technology in policing, no, is not really a police officer. Pardon?
It's coming to me.
How it's been underutilized? Because we need to incorporate it in the system totally. There must be a collaborated effort between the Joint Command, the Command Center, the Police Command Center, and all other command center in the 10 divisions.
Okay.
Yeah?
All right. No, well, it's news time.
News time, you know.
Yeah, so.
Give me one question, real quick.
Initially about incorporating technology into vehicles. We know we have a large of vehicles that are not being used. What are we doing with that? And also, does that include body cams?
If that includes body cam?
Body cams.
Of course, you know, every time I make this statement about body cams, people get all hyper. All right, but let me say this. Technology is where we're going. All right? Technology would include the body cams, the right fitting equipment on the police vehicle, yeah, computers and stuff. You know, the day would come, and this is not a dream. I had a dream moment where the police stations should no longer have books available to them. We intend to change that. The police officer going out on a report should not have a desk diary in his hands. Those days have come and gone, and probably the last regime have left us behind. So now we have to fix all of these things to get our team up and running, for them to even look professional in the execution of their duties. Yeah? Thank you so much.
Well, the streets